Ladies and gentlemen, they thought you were blind, didn't they? They assumed you wandered through life with your eyes shut, deaf to their contempt, numb to the disdain curling behind their words. They thought their little jabs, those passive-aggressive comments they dressed in sarcasm and fake concern, went unnoticed. They thought their sly smirks, their casual disregard, their covert attempts to undermine you behind closed doors were invisible. But oh, you saw everything, every blink, every whisper, every little shift in their tone that revealed the contempt they tried to mask. You felt the vibration of their hatred in the silence between their words. You weren't blind, you were alert. You were sharper than they ever knew. You were counting every single moment, like ticks echoing through a dark clock tower. Tick, tick, tick. Time wasn't on their side, it was on yours. They just didn't know the countdown had already begun. They didn't realize the storm they were teasing with each slight. They thought they could mold you into something smaller, something manageable, predictable, easy to forget. They believed if they hit you with enough negativity, enough pressure, enough emotional weight, you'd eventually snap. They expected you to fold under the weight of their manipulation. They thought silence meant surrender. They mistook your stillness for weakness, but they were wrong, dead wrong. What they didn't understand, what their arrogance could never allow them to comprehend, was that the pressure wasn't breaking you. It was forging you. Every insult was a hammer strike on molten steel. Every attempt to suppress you was a flame fueling your rebirth. You weren't shrinking, you were evolving, quietly, carefully, brutally. And while they laughed behind your back and celebrated their illusions of control, you were playing the long game. You were building something they couldn't see. You were stacking their insults like bricks and forging armor with them. You weren't giving in. You were giving shape to something far more terrifying, your rebirth. They couldn't see it, but you were becoming something stronger with every passing moment. You didn't retaliate because you understood a deeper truth. The kind of truth only those forged in silence understand. Power doesn't always come from screaming the loudest. Sometimes, the most dangerous people are the ones who say nothing at all. Because you know exactly what it's like, don't you? To walk into a room and feel the air change. The energy shifts, even if no one says a word. You feel the way the laughter dims. The fake smiles tighten. The fake conversations pause. You know what it's like to be the target of veiled hostility, wrapped in polite words. You've stood there, taking it all in, the way they disguise their disdain as concern, the way they plant seeds of doubt in your mind with a casual tone and calculated smile. And through it all, you didn't scream. You didn't cry. You didn't beg for them to stop. You let them think they were winning, that they were cracking your armor. But in reality, you were letting them dig their own graves, one shovel of disrespect at a time. While they reveled in their tiny victories, you were building a war chest of resilience. They mistook your quiet for consent, your patience for submission. They didn't realize that your silence wasn't retreat, it was strategy. You were gathering strength, channeling your pain, letting the fire burn hotter and hotter until it no longer consumed you, it shaped you. You were becoming someone they couldn't predict, someone they couldn't manipulate, someone they couldn't break. Each jab wasn't weakening you, it was making you bulletproof. Every insult wasn't a wound, it was a lesson. And you absorbed it all. You didn't flinch, you didn't falter. Instead, You carved every moment into your memory, every attack into your armor. They didn't realize that they weren't hurting you. They were crafting the very weapon that would one day rise in front of them, more powerful than they ever imagined. And now, here's the truth they will choke on. They were never in control. People like that, the ones who live off making others feel small, believe their power lies in silence. They think if no one pushes back, they've won. But they don't understand that silence doesn't always mean fear. Sometimes it means calculation. Sometimes it means growth. Sometimes it means the person they're underestimating is becoming something far beyond their comprehension. They thought their subtle attacks, their whispers, their sly digs were untraceable. They thought they could chip away at your spirit slowly, like water wearing down a stone. But they didn't know you were made of fire. That every drop of disrespect only made you burn brighter. They didn't realize that every game they played, every lie they told, every betrayal they committed, was stacking up like kindling for the inferno that would one day devour them. They couldn't see the strength you were hiding behind your silence, the self-control you were mastering. They couldn't fathom the power it takes to endure, to restrain, to hold back when every instinct wants to scream. That is power, real power. And that's the power you've been cultivating in the shadows. You watched as they tried to break you down, as they pushed your boundaries, tested your patience, mocked your silence. But while they thought they were wearing you thin, you were solidifying. You were becoming steel beneath your skin. They thought you were bending. But every insult only straightened your spine. Every sneer only widened your vision. They were digging their own downfall, stroke by stroke. And they didn't even know it. They assumed your silence was surrender. They never imagined it was preparation. They saw your restraint and mistook it for powerlessness. But it was the opposite. It was a storm waiting to be unleashed. They had no idea that your calm was the stillness before a tidal wave. And now, it's here. The reckoning has arrived, the moment you rise. And oh, how beautiful it is. Not because of vengeance, not because of payback, but because you've become undeniable, unshakable. A force of nature sculpted from every insult they ever threw at you. They'll see it in your eyes, the calm fury, the collected chaos. They'll hear it in your silence, the kind that demands respect louder than any scream ever could. They'll feel it in your presence, the aura of someone who was tested by fire and walked out untouched. They never realized they weren't breaking you. They were building you. Every shot they took helped construct the walls of your inner fortress. Every time they tried to push you down, they were lifting you up, unintentionally hoisting you toward your highest form. Now look at you, standing tall, quiet, cold, complete, and they're scrambling to understand how they lost control of something they never had power over to begin with. They thought they could reduce you to ashes. But you weren't burning out, you were igniting. They thought you were fading, but you were rising. They thought they had you figured out. But now they see the truth. And by the time they do, it's far too late. They don't apologize. They won't take accountability. They may walk away as if nothing happened. But you don't need their guilt. You don't need their regret. Because you already won the moment you chose not to let their poison infect your spirit. The moment you stood tall when it would have been easier to fall apart. The moment you turned pain into power, silence into strength, and disrespect into destiny. Because now the world will see Now they'll all witness what happens when someone stops waiting for validation and starts embracing transformation. You are not the victim. You never were. You were the architect, the alchemist, the silent force they never saw coming. And now you rise. You rise with the fury of restraint, with the strength of 1,000 unsaid words, with the wisdom that only pain can teach. Let them watch. Let them drown in the consequences of underestimating you. Because you were never theirs to break. You were always your own to build. And now the world meets the real you.